Okay, so we're going to take a look at installing RenderNow onto your local computer. And we're going to go through these different steps here just to walk through the process, which is pretty quick, just a couple things to consider. So first off, the computer specs to consider. The application is a Windows application, so you'll want to have Windows on your computer. If it is a Apple computer, you can install something like Parallels or Boot Camp and then install Windows on that. And then you would be able to install RenderNow onto that Windows side of the computer. And then some hardware specs. The application does use high-end graphics to run the application. You don't necessarily need high-end graphics. They're just good to have. So you can run some more basic projects. So if you have a project that doesn't have as much lighting and many objects, you should be able to run those projects decently. But if you have some larger projects where there's a lot of lighting in them and a lot of objects, the application might run slower if you don't have a high-end graphics card or processor or RAM on your computer. So just take note of some of these hardware specs, and you can see what type of hardware your computer has, and just kind of you can look up what the equivalents are. Okay, so next we're going to quickly install the application. So you're just going to hit the download button, which should be right here, and it will download onto your downloads folder probably. It will be in a zipped file, and you'll just need to extract the file. So click on it, you can right click and hit extract all, and it will extract the program, which will basically just create a new folder for the program. At that point, you can, let's drag over here. At that point, you can open or double click on this file right here. So the RenderNow launcher. So we'll double click on that, and then it will say this really quick. So this is just asking about this patch.exe. So this is how the application will basically update. So we'll hit yes, and then you'll see this. So this is the application now is actually downloading and all of the files necessary. So anytime the application uploads, you'll see this. It does say game patch system, which is just because we use a third-party program that allows us to patch the application, which is why this says game patch system. But so what will happen now is basically it will install the initial files, which are just some tutorial files, and then the larger packaged file, which will take anywhere from, I would say, 5 to 10 minutes, depending on how fast your internet speed is. It could take even less time if you have a much faster bandwidth. And so you'll also see when it's downloading that one of the files is called Bunker Builder. And the name Bunker Builder you might see a couple times. So that was the original name of our program before we changed the name to RenderNow. And at the moment, the original application is named this, and we'd have to rename a bunch of stuff to change it. So you might just see this name, but it doesn't. It's the same program. It just has a different name, basically. Just a note there. All right, and once the larger file is finished downloading, this should go a bit quicker and should progress that way. I believe the overall file at the moment is about 4 gigabytes. So you're going to want to make sure that you have enough space on your hard drive for about 4 gigabytes of storage. Okay, and so once the application is done downloading, you'll see this. So this is the launcher. At any point, you can check for updates just by clicking this. If I hit yes, it's just going to go through that again, basically to say it's already updated. If you go to live chat and resources, it's going to take you to our the RenderNow website so that you can use the chat button here if you need any help. And then you can just hit the play button, and that will install, or that will load the program. Before I do that though, so your application at this point is probably in your downloads folder. At any point, you can move the folder to maybe somewhere like your documents folder or somewhere else in case you don't want it to be in your downloads folder or maybe your desktop. So you could do that as well if you want to. So when you hit the play button for the first time, it will probably ask you to install a prerequisite, which is going to be from Epic Games, and you'll need to install that if it's a prerequisite, which is basically just installing some background applications that will allow the program to run. So it should be a quick install to do that. So you just go through that process real quick, and then once that's finished, you can come back, hit play again, and it should be able to install the application or run the application. All right, so if I hit the play button here now, it's going to load the application. and it's going to load it like this. You could, let me see here, you can go into make that fit your screen by clicking that button, and then I'm just going to log in. Okay, so once you open a project, you'll probably have an empty room, but I just loaded a basic project for now. So at this point, you can kind of play with the program, and again, if it shows any errors, I don't think I mentioned this before, but when you load either this or if you hit the play button and it says that there's any errors or any unknown publisher or anything like that, please let us know about that, because we do have the application is signed so that Windows should not throw any errors. But if it is for you, just let us know and we'll try to make sure that we take care of that. Okay, once you go into the application, you can start using it. You can expand the application like this. You can go into full screen mode so that it takes over the whole computer screen. You can change the resolution as well, which will make the whole screen either smaller or larger. And yeah, and again, you can adjust some settings on here. So like the lighting settings and the resolution settings to try to adjust if you are looking to possibly speed up the way that it works on your computer. And lastly, if you're on, let's say, a 4K monitor, a couple things to note with that. Because the application uses your graphics card to run the application, if you just do this, if you maximize the whole application like that, and you're on a 4K monitor, it's going to try to run the whole application in 4K resolution, which will indeed take a lot of processing. If you have a high-end GPU, that's great, and it should work okay for you. But if you don't, and if you notice that it's slow, what I would do is when you go into full screen by using that method, I would then change this to 1080p, because that will basically make it make sure that it's 1920 by 1080 instead of 4K. And again, that kind of all just depends on your GPU and how fast or slow it's running. Okay, so that is pretty much it. At the end of the day, you can always go to our chat button here on the website and get a hold of us if you have any questions. As you're using the application, definitely use the chat button still from the website. And a couple other quick things to note: when you do save projects, they will be saved to the cloud still, so everything saves to the cloud, and all of your projects will be there. So you can also log into the web browser version of the application if you want to use the application from there. So you can kind of go back and forth between the local version and the website version if you want to go back and forth. And so a couple other quick notes. If you add a object and you want to add an image to an object, or just add an image to the local version here, it's going to pop up the Windows Explorer. So add image, and then you'll be able to pick a file. If you can't see the file, if you're in full screen or something like that, and this doesn't show up, basically you might need to Alt-Tab to open up the Windows Explorer that's possibly just behind the application. So that's just a quick note about that. And it'll say that right here. Lastly, when you export your renderings, you can render in 4K or HD. It's going to allow you to pick the location of where you want to render it to. And so you can just pick that location, rename the file, and go from there. The renderings do happen a lot faster when you render locally because it doesn't have to upload it to a server, basically. And the resolution that you set will also kind of have an effect on the output of the rendering. So if I were to have a 4K monitor and I was in full screen like this, and then if I hit render 4K, it's going to give me a bit better resolution, because ultimately you're using all of the pixels on that 4K monitor. Okay, again, let us know if you have any questions, and yep, thank you.